I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Mark, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for almost 8 years. We met during our grad school days. She was brilliant, fierce, and sometimes a total bitch, but I loved her anyway. We got married a little over 5 years ago, and I always thought we had a pretty solid life. We weren't perfect, sure, but I believed in us. The first sign something was off started about a month ago. Lisa's been acting weird, distracted, distant. She's been working late almost every night, claiming she's finishing up some project for her job. It was odd because she's always been upfront about her work schedule. But I noticed little things. Her phone ringing at odd hours, her deleting texts like she was trying to hide something, and I caught her changing her password on her laptop. Nothing concrete, but enough to set my alarm bells ringing. Then there was the night I came home early from work, expecting to surprise her with dinner. I pulled into the driveway and her car wasn't there. I called her, and she said she was still at the lab working late. But as I was about to hang up, I saw a strange glow coming from the side of the house. When I peeked around the corner, I froze. There was Lisa in our backyard with some guy, big, broad-shouldered, definitely not a coworker, kissing her. Not just a peck, it was full-on making out. My stomach dropped and I felt like I'd been hit in the chest. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife, the woman I trusted more than anyone, cheating right in my own backyard. It wasn't just sex, though I could tell from the way she was pressed against him, hands all over. There was a kind of raw, reckless passion that made my blood boil. I was stunned, frozen, unable to do anything at first. I kept watching as they moved inside her house, and I knew I had to do something, but I was too overwhelmed to react right away. I stayed hidden behind the bushes, trying to process what I'd just seen. My mind was racing with questions. Who is this guy? How long has this been going on? Why, how could she betray me like this? I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. This wasn't some innocent flirtation. It was real, it was raw, and it was happening in my own backyard. The irony, how this whole thing was happening in a sealed environment chamber during our Mars habitat simulations, a project I'd poured my heart into, and she was out there with someone else. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing her kiss him, and I kept asking myself if I'd known anything was wrong, if there were signs I missed, or if I'd just been blind. I thought about confronting her then and there, but I didn't want to do something I'd regret. Instead, I just sat in the dark, feeling the weight of betrayal crush me. I never imagined our marriage would come to this, especially not over some guy she met in a sealed environment chamber during our Mars project. What made it worse was how she always acts like she's the smartest person in the room, tough, bitchy, full of lies. She's the kind of woman who can manipulate her way out of anything, and I was starting to realize that she'd been hiding this from me for a while. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I knew this wasn't just a fling. It felt like a betrayal of everything we built together. I thought about confronting her immediately, but part of me was just numb. I didn't even know what to say or how to start. All I knew was I'd seen enough to know that my wife, Lisa, was cheating on me, and I was about to find out just how deep this rabbit hole went. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been run over by a truck. My mind kept replaying that scene from the night before, Lisa in the backyard with some stranger acting like she didn't have a care in the world. I knew I needed to get some clarity, but I also knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I had to confront her. I just didn't know how or when. I spent the day trying to act normal, but it was impossible. Every time I looked at her, I saw the sneaky little glances, the way she avoided my eyes. Her phone kept buzzing, and I felt a strange mixture of anger and heartbreak every time I saw her scramble to hide it. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I needed a plan, something calculated but not impulsive. That evening, I decided to go through her phone. I waited until she was in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine. I quietly snuck into the bedroom, grabbed her phone from her purse and started scrolling. It was a mess of texts, flirty messages, late-night calls, plans to meet up, all hidden behind some bullshit excuse about work. There were also dozens of selfies she sent to him, showing her in different outfits, her hair done up, all with a kind of reckless abandon I'd never seen before. It was like she was trying to hide nothing. One message caught my eye. It was a text from her that read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. I need something more than just a quick fuck. I want to feel alive again." My stomach sank. That was just a few days before I caught her kissing the other guy. The level of deception hit me hard. She'd been lying to me for weeks, maybe longer. I felt my blood boiling. This wasn't just some careless fling, it was a full-blown affair. I realized I had enough evidence to blow the lid off, but part of me hesitated. I didn't want to be some emotional wreck, but I also didn't want to be played like a damn fool. So I kept digging, trying to piece together how deep this went and what her motives might be. Later that night, I confronted her. I handed her the phone and watched her face drain of color as she saw the messages. She tried to deny everything at first, calling it just sex, and told me I was overreacting. She threw out the usual lines. She was stressed. It didn't mean anything. She was just looking for something more exciting. But her lies fell flat. I could see through the bullshit. I wasn't born yesterday. The hardest part was the way she lied so effortlessly, like she didn't care that she was breaking me apart. She called me paranoid, accused me of snooping, and then yelled at me that I was overthinking everything. But I knew her better. She's always been manipulative, and now I could see she was just trying to save herself. She kept insisting she'd stop, that it was a mistake, that she loved me, but her words sounded hollow. I could see the guilty look in her eyes, the way she avoided my gaze, and I knew I wasn't buying her excuses anymore. That night was a blur. I was angry, hurt, and disgusted all at once. I felt like I'd been sucker punched, and I didn't know who she really was anymore. The woman I married, the one I trusted with my life, had been cheating on me with some guy during our Mars habitat simulations, no less. I'd poured so much into that project, into her, and now I was sitting here questioning everything. How long had this been going on? Was it just the sex, or was there something deeper? Was I just some fool she was using to keep her life together? I kept asking myself how I let it get this far. Maybe I was naive, or maybe I wanted to believe we had something real. But now all I could see was her lying, cheating, and pretending everything was fine while secretly sneaking around behind my back. I felt betrayed and humiliated, wondering how I'd ever trust her again. The worst part was knowing this wasn't just a mistake, it was a choice she made repeatedly, and she was still lying to my face about it. I knew deep down I needed to decide what I was going to do next, but that night I just sat there staring at the ceiling, trying to process how my life had been turned upside down in a matter of weeks. The days that followed were a nightmare. I couldn't eat, sleep, or concentrate. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her kissing him in the backyard, heard her lying about work, and felt this deep, gnawing sense of betrayal. I kept replaying that moment when I found her texts, trying to figure out whether I should confront her again, cut her off completely, or just go silent and let her sweat it out. Honestly, I was so angry I thought about just packing my shit and walking away. But part of me wanted revenge, some way to make her feel what I was feeling, humiliated, betrayed, stupid. I knew I had to get ahead of this, so I started planning. I didn't want to do anything impulsive, but I also didn't want to give her the chance to spin her lies. I had to be clever. First, I decided to monitor her phone and email for a little while longer. I wanted to catch her in the act again or find out if she was still sneaking around. I also decided to check her social media, and sure enough, there were more messages from the guy. There was a pattern, a steady buildup of lies, and that just made me more furious. One thing I noticed was how she kept insisting she was done with the guy, that she was just confused, that she didn't mean for it to happen. Yeah, right, that's what all liars say. I knew she was lying, and I wanted to get her caught in her own web of deceit. So I set up a little trap, some fake messages I sent from her phone, pretending to be a friend, asking about her relationship with him. A way to see if she'd slip up or say something she shouldn't. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, pretending to be normal, cooking dinner, acting like she cared, but I saw right through it. She was tense, constantly looking over her shoulder, and I could tell she was starting to crack. I didn't care if she knew I was onto her. I just wanted her to keep slipping. I wanted her to realize I wasn't naive anymore. I was done playing the fool. One particularly crazy day, I came home early again. I wanted to catch her in the act just to see if she'd slip up. Sure enough, I found her in the bedroom packing a bag. When I walked in, she froze like a deer in headlights. I asked what she was doing, and she snapped back with her usual bitchy attitude, trying to act innocent, saying she was just going out with her friends. But I knew better. The way she was nervously clutching her purse told me she was hiding something. I moved closer and demanded to see her phone. She hesitated but finally handed it over, probably realizing she was caught. I scrolled through her messages and there was more evidence. More lies, more flirtatious texts, plans to meet up after work. I could see the blatant disrespect in her words. She was trying to cover her tracks, but it was too late. I'd seen enough. I told her that I knew everything, that she'd been lying to me for weeks. Her face twisted into this angry, bitchy sneer, and she spat, "You're crazy, Mark. You're just jealous because I still have a life outside of you. You think I'm cheating because I want to have some fun. Get over yourself." That was her standard line, deny, deflect, insult. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who thought she could get away with anything. What hit me hardest that day was her attitude, so dismissive of my feelings. I realized she never really cared about the vows or the effort I put in. To her, I was just someone to keep around until she found a better option. That realization made me feel sick. And that's when I started to seriously think about how to end this, how to finally take control of what was left of my dignity. I knew I couldn't keep pretending she was innocent or that she'd change. The betrayal was too deep, too personal. I felt a mixture of rage and sadness. How someone I loved and trusted could become this person, so manipulative and callous. I decided I'd give her one last chance to come clean, but I was already planning my exit. I didn't want to be around her anymore, not after all this. If she wanted to keep lying, that was her choice, but I was done being the fool. I had to think about what was best for me now, how to get out, rebuild, and maybe, just maybe, learn how to trust someone again. After that day, I knew I had to act fast. Staying in the house with her, knowing what I knew, felt like digging my own grave. I started making plans, saving money secretly, researching apartments, figuring out what my next step should be. I didn't want to jump into anything rash, but I also couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. The betrayal had cut too deep, and I needed to get out before I lost what was left of my sanity. The next few days were a blur. I kept close tabs on her, watching her routines, trying to anticipate her next move. I didn't want her to suspect I was onto her, especially not yet. Meanwhile, I was gathering more evidence, just in case I needed to use it later. I found more evidence of her sneaking around, more messages, more plans to meet. It was clear she was planning something, probably to sneak out again or to meet the guy somewhere else. The thought made my blood boil. One night, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I was going to confront her head on. I wanted her to see that I wasn't some naive idiot anymore. I waited until she was in the bathroom and then I grabbed her phone. I knew I had to do it carefully. I didn't want her to get suspicious. I sifted through her recent messages, screenshots of her planning to meet him again, talks about how hot they were for each other, and even some explicit stuff. I saved a few for evidence, just in case. Then I waited. When she came out of the bathroom, I looked her in the eyes and laid it out. I told her I knew everything about the affair, the lies, the sneaking around. Her reaction was priceless. She looked furious, defensive, then angry, then suddenly she started crying, acting like she was the victim. That fake bitchy attitude she always had. She tried to guilt trip me, saying I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that she'd never do anything to hurt me. She even threw in the classic line, "You're just jealous because I still have needs you can't satisfy." That one made my blood boil even more. I told her that I wasn't stupid anymore. I knew she'd been cheating, that her words were hollow, and that her lies didn't fool me. I told her she could keep lying, but I was done. I was sick of being her fool, her backup plan. I told her I was leaving, that I couldn't stay with someone who lied, cheated, and disrespected me like this. She snapped, saying I was overreacting, that I was ruining everything, that she loved me and was sorry. But I didn't care anymore. It was like talking to a wall. She kept insisting she'd change, but I knew better. That night, I started packing a bag. I didn't want her to stop me or try to guilt me into staying. I realized I'd been a fool for too long, letting her manipulate me, thinking I was the only one who cared. I was done with her lies, her bitchy attitude, her games. I just wanted out. I left her standing there, furious and crying, and I went to a friend's place to sleep. I knew I needed space, time to breathe and think. It was the first step toward reclaiming my life. But the thing that stuck with me the most was how effortless she was at lying, how she could pretend to be innocent one second, then turn around and accuse me of ruining her life the next. I realized she'd been this way for a long time, hiding her true self behind a mask of bitchy sarcasm and manipulative charm. It made me wonder how many other lies she told, how many more secrets she kept. I knew I'd have to face her again eventually, but for now, I just wanted to get away. I needed to understand what had gone so wrong, and more importantly, I needed to rebuild myself after being broken down so completely. The days after I left were some of the hardest I've ever experienced. Every time I tried to sleep, I saw her face, her sneering, manipulative face, and heard her accusations echo in my head. I kept going over everything, wondering if I should go back, confront her again, or just cut her out entirely. Part of me still hoped she'd come crawling back, begging for forgiveness, but deep down I knew that was wishful thinking. She sat there, crying and yelling, but her actions told me everything I needed to know. She was fully committed to her lies and her new life with that guy. I decided to take some time away from the chaos. I rented a small apartment nearby, just enough space to breathe and get my head straight. I needed to detach, to see her clearly without the fog of betrayal clouding my judgment. I spent days just walking, thinking, and trying to process the truth. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind for so long, but now that I knew, I couldn't unsee it. Every moment I spent with her, every little lie she told, felt like a dagger in my heart. Meanwhile, I was trying to decide whether to fight for the marriage or walk away for good. The truth is, part of me still loved her, my stupid, foolish love that's hard to let go of. But the other part was furious, furious at her betrayal, at myself for trusting her, and at the way she treated me like dirt. I knew. I had to be honest with myself. If I kept holding on, I'd just end up getting more hurt. If I let her go, I could finally start healing. One night I made a decision. I called her just to hear her voice. She answered, and the way she tried to act like everything was normal made my stomach turn. I told her I was done with her lies, her games, her manipulation. I told her that I couldn't keep pretending she wasn't cheating, that I was sick of being the fool she played. I said I was going to file for divorce, that I wanted no contact. The silence on the other end was deafening, but I knew I couldn't keep letting her drag me through this hell. Her response was classic Lisa. She tried to guilt me, saying I was overreacting, that I was destroying our family, that she still loved me and just needed time. I told her that love isn't about cheating, about sneaking behind my back, lying and disrespecting everything we had. I told her I deserved better than this, that I was done playing her game. Then I hung up. It wasn't easy, but I knew. I had to do it, for myself. In the days that followed, I started the legal process. It was a slow, painful thing, going through the divorce papers, talking to lawyers, dealing with all the emotional baggage I'd been carrying. But I also felt a strange relief. I was finally taking control of my life again. I realized how much I'd sacrificed, how much I'd ignored because I didn't want to believe she was capable of this kind of betrayal. But now I was finally free of her lies, her bitchy attitude, and her manipulations. Looking back on it, I learned a lot about trust and betrayal. I learned that sometimes the people closest to you can hurt you the most, often when you least expect it. I learned that women like Lisa, who act bitchy and manipulative, can hide terrible secrets behind that tough exterior. And I also learned that revenge isn't about doing something destructive. It's about reclaiming your dignity, your self-respect. I still get angry when I think of her lying, cheating, and acting like she's the victim. But I also feel stronger now, understanding that I deserve better, and I won't let anyone treat me like an option. So for anyone out there going through something similar, trust your instincts, gather your evidence, and don't be afraid to walk away. Because at the end of the day, your happiness and self-worth come first. If someone can betray you that deeply, they're not worth your time or tears. Just remember you're stronger than you think. And someday, you'll find someone who truly values you for who you are. Now, after everything is said and done, I find myself reflecting more than anything else. I thought I knew what love was, thought I had a partner who cared about me, but she proved me wrong in the worst way. The betrayal cut deep, but strangely, it also set me free. It's like I finally woke up from a long, false dream. I see now how much I was willing to overlook, how many small signs I ignored because I wanted to believe in us, in the fairy tale we built. Turns out, fairy tales are often just illusions, and reality hits hard when the mask comes off. I've come to realize that I was putting up with a lot. Her bitchy dismissiveness, her lies, her manipulative attitude, all because I was afraid of losing what we had, but I was losing myself too. Now I understand that respect and honesty are the foundation of any real relationship. Without them, everything else crumbles, and that's what happened with Lisa. She built a house of lies, and when the truth finally broke through, there was nothing left but debris. In some ways, I feel a strange sense of relief. I don't have to pretend anymore, don't have to play the fool. I can focus on myself, rebuild my life without her constant manipulation and emotional games. The pain still lingers, but it's less sharp now. It's a reminder that I survived, that I've grown stronger, and that I don't have to settle for someone who doesn't truly care about me. Looking back, I wish I had stood up for myself sooner. Maybe I wouldn't have had to go through such hell if I'd trusted my instincts from the beginning. But I also know that hindsight is always 20/20. What matters is that I learned my lesson and that I refuse to be her pawn anymore. I've realized that true strength lies in knowing when to walk away and in valuing your own dignity above all else. To anyone reading this who's in a similar situation, please don't ignore the signs. Don't dismiss your feelings or justify their lies. You deserve honesty, respect, and someone who genuinely cares about you. If they betray that, it's better to walk away than to stay and get crushed slowly. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much it hurts, you're worth more than being someone's secret, their backup plan, or their emotional punching bag. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I do know that I'm finally moving forward. I might be scarred, but I'm also stronger than I've ever been. And that's something no betrayal can take away from me. Life goes on, better, smarter, and more cautious. I've learned that love isn't about losing yourself in someone else's lies. It's about finding someone who lifts you up, who treats you with respect, and who you can trust implicitly. That's the kind of love I'm finally ready to find, one based on truth, not deception. And that's all I really needed to say.